I don't think I'll ever be tired hearing business growth stories about how something began with a few boxes of stock in a bedroom and now runs out of a huge warehouse. If you're the same, you're going to love this episode because that is the story of Game Kings. Co-owner and founder Elliot Jessup started a business selling Cards Against Humanity sets, by the way, I love that game, because he wanted to buy them himself. But the road from that to becoming one of the biggest independent game retailers in New Zealand wasn't without its complications, barriers, or life lessons. In this podcast, Elliot shares his story, including how they had to rename the Facebook community they'd built from scratch for legal reasons, how the couriers used to really feel about their original offices, how COVID impacted their business, and how he almost gave it all away because he was so busy growing another business. He also shares how he juggled Game King's growth along his other passion, getting to travel the world with incredible artists as their touring lighting designer. Not bad for a 27-year-old who tried a range of jobs before realizing he's best self-employed. Game King no longer just sells board games, but is now designing their own ranges and has found the community that they built to be incredibly supportive of this. They've also found new ways to market their products, including investing in both organic and paid marketing on TikTok. If you want to be inspired and hear some of the trials and difficulties that Game Kings have experienced and how they've overcome them, this is an unmissable episode. Before we jump in and start talking to Elliot, who is honestly one of the loveliest guys I have met in ages on this podcast. To be fair, I have a lot of guys on this podcast. I have got a few coming up though, but he was amazing and so inspiring. But before we jump in and listen to him, if you've got questions coming out of this podcast or you just like to hang out with other small business owners, come and be part of the Map It Marketing group on Facebook. You can ask me questions there as a marketing strategist, get support and help, and also find out about our events and other things to help you in your small business. Right, without further ado, let's hear from Elliot. Welcome. This is Map It Marketing and I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. Hi and welcome to Map It Marketing. I'm your host, Rachel Klaver, and I'm really excited to have our guest, Elliot Jessup, here with us today. He owns Game Kings, and I have bought from Elliot before, and I've also just followed him online and just watched his absolute catapult into growth as he's grown a business that is, admittedly, as he says, niche, but really is touching a pain point that we have in so many areas of our life of needing to connect with people, have fun, and as he says, make card games and games cool again, which I think is very important as someone who was a previous nerd. Always a nerd. Let's be honest, I'm still a nerd. But to actually think that my nerdism can be cool now is actually quite good. So before we jump in and talk a little bit about how Game Kings came to be and how it's grown, I thought, Elliot, could you just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself so we can find out about you? And welcome to the show, by the way. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. That was a great introduction. I feel like you've covered off a good part of me. But no, I'm Elliot. I started Game Kings genuinely as an accident a couple of years ago. I never thought it would get, at the start, I never quite thought it would get to where it is now. But yeah, I'm based in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, run Game Kings day to day. Love it. We've got an awesome team there. And on the side of that, I also freelance as a lighting designer, but that's completely off to the side, but
because you've got nothing else to do, right?
Yeah, because I'm a sucker for doing too much.
Yeah.
But no, it's fun to have a couple different projects, it's fun to never have free time.
Well, I think too, one of the things I years and years ago, I did a whole lot of articles for, it was Next magazine or something like that. And I was doing a series of articles. But one of the things I became really passionate about, because I wrote like 27 books in 8 years when I was quite a young mum, and it was like a lot. And people used to say, how'd you do that? And I said, I think that when you're busy, creativity and growth as an entrepreneur happens when you're hitting against a wall of a boundary, and busyness can be a really good boundary. And it's a better boundary than poverty, because poverty is just bloody stressful.
Yeah, exactly. I think I got not obsessed with the idea of building something big, but I like the idea of growth. You know, I've got ADHD and I think I get very bored quickly. I just don't think that's why I've never done well in jobs. I never really did well in school. When I was younger, like the first couple of years post school for me, people were just always blown away. But man, you've got your fingers in so many pies. And it was literally just putting my fingers in every pie to work out which one I kind of liked, because I'd never stayed a job more than a couple months. I was admittedly a terrible employee, good at making relationships with bosses, and we'd always come to mutual agreements that I shouldn't be here. I don't think I ever got, the only time I actually got properly fired was from Cotton On. But that's fair enough.
I feel like this is great. I can see why I really wanted to have you on my podcast. My father tried to fire me from a job that he employed me in. And like, that's the lowest. Like, your dad is going, he's a veterinarian and I was a vet nurse. I was the worst vet nurse there because I also with ADHD, I'd have to clean up the surgery afterwards. And he'd just be like, what has gone on in here? And I'm like, it's clean. And he's like, there are literally swabs on the floor, you know, like wig. And I was like, I didn't see them. I didn't notice them. You know, I was great at customer service.
Yeah.
Chatting on the phone, really good at writing down anything afterwards.
Yeah, no, very much on that. That's Bennett. So Ben, my business partner in Game Kings, we're the perfect little combo, because I'm the same. I can pick up the phone to anyone and I can come up with such a great idea with them. But if you expect me to do the follow-up email, it's not happening. The whole thing's just not happening.
That's so me. And I do believe you have to have someone like you've got Ben, I've got my husband Rod. You have to have that in the business to balance it. That's how entrepreneurs with ADHD succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I used to beat myself up a lot about it and try and make myself better and be like, no, you know, like I have to be more organized. I have to be better at emails and I have to, but like, I think just actually understanding, no, that is like a real weakness of mine, and how do we build a team around and, you know, find people who are good at that. And I think also giving myself a little bit of grace for the skills that I do have, because I realized that, you know, like other people can't just pick up the phone to, you know, just a complete stranger and call them with a wild idea. Like that to them is way too scary, but to me, that's exciting. That's so cool. That's creative. And
I never thought about that being an ADHD trait, but I got my book contracts at Penguin because I just randomly emailed like the head publisher and said, hey, use me. I don't have an ego, but I'd like to write, and got 3 book contracts out of it. And I do think maybe that is a trait that I hadn't seen as an ADHD trait that is actually a beneficial one.
Yeah, I've never thought about it too much as an ADHD thing as well, but you know, just that bold confidence has definitely it got me a while. It got me a wee while. Like I think about when I first left school, was still at school maybe, I wanted to work in radio. And I remember I literally worked out where the MediaWorks office was in Hamilton. And I went there after school one day in my uniform. I'd gone online, I'd worked out who the manager was, and I just went and knocked on the door. Hi, I'm Elliot, and I really want to work in radio. What can we do? And I think they were just like, who the fuck is this? And yeah, that was kind of how I left school. I went there, I started volunteering and just literally doing anything they wanted a couple of days a week. And I had a scholarship to like a very nice school in Cambridge, St. Peter's. And I remember going to see the principal and just saying, hey, sorry, sir, I'm not going to be here Tuesdays and Thursdays. And he goes, what do you mean you're not going to, like, that's not really an option. I was like, no, I've got this internship at MediaWorks and I really need to go do it. And that was the start of me getting kicked out of school. It was just...
Which is a shame in lots of ways, because I think, you know, if you are being proactive to doing that, I was thinking, you know, my daughter has had a similar journey in some ways in terms of boredom at school and needing to have other things. But I look at other people, Johnny O'Donnell, who I really like, who's an entrepreneur, you know, like he went and did a whole lot of stuff during school, and the school gave him room. I think it was in Nelson, and the school gave him room to do that. Like, I think that schools should actually see that. And I understand that private schools can often be a bit different, but I do think feeding the entrepreneur, that go-getter, and trying to balance it, but keeping those kids also in school a little bit too. You would have been able to get all your work done because you would have been motivated because you were squeezing that stress in. Hey, like it probably would have made you achieve better at school. Maybe not.
Within reason, I think at the start they were mildly supportive, and the kind of deal was okay. Well, if you can keep up on school,
okay, yeah, okay.
You know, and so that was actually on me for. I didn't care, you know.
Didn't care anymore. I totally understand.
Yeah. I knew that learning whatever I was learning in, you know, year 12 math, I just didn't interest me at all. Couldn't give a shit. And, like I've been doing lighting stuff since I was at high school. And I remember, I got offered 2 weeks working on like the Rugby World Cup back in 2011, 12 sort of thing. And even though, it was a pretty basic lighting job as a 16-year-old, like I couldn't turn that work down.
No, who would?
Yeah. And, the school was relatively supportive. And, now I literally tour the world with some of my favorite artists, getting paid great to go do what I love creatively. And it's like, well, thank you to the school for giving me the time to go and do that stuff. But, also I was so lucky to go to a school that was so well equipped from like a theatre point of view.
Good point.
I got to play with lights at school and drama and stuff like that. And that brought me forward. And at school, actually, I wasn't at all interested in business, never thought about business, would have never taken an economics class or any kind of, but thinking back on it, I was so into business because I was at boarding school for a while and I worked out, they didn't have a canteen at the school. And I went home every weekend. And so I'd go home and I'd go to Reduce to Clear, that like shop where they get rid of stuff. And I'd go and buy expired energy drinks for 50 cents a can. And I was buying slabs and just slabs. And I was getting mum to bring them to school during the week. And, I'm going out of school with a second backpack full of energy drinks, running a system on my phone, just giving them to my friends. But on my phone, cool, yeah, he owes me for 4, cool. And I don't know, I remember one day, I think I made about $100 cash a day at the school.
Perfect.
Now looking back on, I was like, yeah, very entrepreneurial, very business.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, oh no, this is cool. Like,
yeah, and I do think it's interesting because my brother actually almost got kicked out of school for doing the same thing with fireworks because he was there. He was like would have been the same age as that for you, but obviously he's a lot older than you. But the year before fireworks got banned, he went and bought a whole lot and hid them in his room, and then went and sold them at school for a huge profit the following year, and almost got expelled for it because obviously it was illegal. But I do think it's interesting when you look back and see those different things, and I think also one of the things I like about Game Kings, from what I understand, is really it came from you falling in love with a particular game and struggling to get it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like I was bored. I was looking for stuff to do with my friends. We were looking, what we could do. At the same time, I was also quite interested in like digital marketing, and I genuinely read an ebook about importing products and selling them on TradeMe. And I was just kind of bored kid, and I had this little light bulb, and I was like, oh, hold up, there's that game that we want, and we can't get it here. And looked overseas, and you can see like one of the original e-commerce tricks I ever learned was about looking through the Amazon top 100 lists.
Ah, yes.
And I just remember scrolling and seeing, this game Cards Against Humanity so high on that list, and then going to TradeMe and being like, well, it's not on TradeMe. Is it on? And I couldn't find it on any other websites really in New Zealand. And it was kind of like, yeah, well, I guess like if I want it, someone else probably does. And that's literally the whole starting Game Kings was the premise of if I want it, maybe someone else does.
And it's an interesting, and the game, everyone, by the way, is Cards Against Humanity, which if you haven't played it before and you have a slightly, not deviant, but slightly naughty viewpoint on life, I would highly recommend it. Just, potentially not play it with 13-year-olds, but besides that, it's a great game to play. And so it started with Cards Against Humanity, and I vividly remember when that happened, because I know that before that, pretty much the only way to play Cards Against Humanity was to download their e-pack, print it out on paper, and then cut them up, and it was flimsy packs. And I think that was actually the first way I ever played it, to be honest.
Yeah. And I said, no, you go.
No, you go. I told you I'd interrupt, but I'm happy if you interrupt.
No, I was about to say, and I think that's how most people played it for a couple of years. And to be fair, I think that's where our first sort of packs came from as well, because I didn't really even know where to source this was when Cards Against Humanity was so just an internet project sort of thing that I'm just finding miscellaneous suppliers who say they can sell it, and I'm like, fine, I'll have it. And that was a learning on what licensing and where to buy official product came from.
I love that. So Cards Against Humanity was where it started, and you were just selling on TradeMe.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened after TradeMe? Like, when was the point where you went, hang on a minute, did you have other games that you were selling on TradeMe before it became this big Game King thing, and with maybe your own website? Like, what was the process for you?
Yeah, so it was Cards Against Humanity for probably like a year, and this was literally while I was still living with my family. I just had a few boxes of them literally in the corner of my room, and I had a stack of courier bags, and I'd sell a couple packs a week, and I'd handwrite the courier bags, I'd drop them to whatever, and then sometimes I'd sell out of the boxes, and I'd literally just forget about them for weeks, or I'd forget to put the Trade Me listings up. And I remember one time my family harassing me, being like, "You've got all these boxes, can you please put them on Trade Me? Like, it's taking up all this room." And I was like, fine. And so that was probably, I don't know, I'd say, yeah. But to be honest, I thought when I first got the first few packs, and I was like, cool, we'll sell these, it'll be done. This is a 6-week project. And then I'll go on to what else I was doing at the time. But then, those first 60 sold pretty well. And I was like, well, might as well get some more. And then, Cards Against Humanity sold expansion packs. So to me, well, it's natural that we sell the expansion pack. And I think because at the time I also was just starting to dabble into like marketing, I understood, we should try and, capture this database. We want to, the amount of times I got told off by Trade Me for sending marketing emails to email addresses I got Trade Me. And, we launched a Facebook page and brazenly called it Cards Against Humanity New Zealand. And just at the time I was, maybe 19, and it was just a shit posting page for me. I'm just throwing out memes. I'm just having fun. I'm building this funny little page. But, that's what made our social media great, is it wasn't that we were trying to make this brand and sell games. I'm literally just a meme on Facebook. We're just having fun, having a good time. And then every couple of weeks I'll drop hey, we're having a flash sale. We're slashing the price of the game, and we just sell heaps. And, this went on Trade Me for probably 2 to 3 years. And at the time, I'd moved out of home, and I had a really good friend of mine, Carl, living with me. And the deal was I was busy because I did a day job working in marketing and real estate. And Carl was a student, and one of my best mates, and I said, hey, you can come live with me. We'll get this apartment. We can have the apartment for free because I sell this stuff on Trade Me, and it makes just enough to pay for the rent. And the only deal is you have to help ship out the games. And it was great. And that went on for probably a year. And then what happened is the actual official distributors for Cards Against Humanity Australasia kind of were like, hey guys, like, you can't be bringing this in yourself. You can't be calling your page Cards Against Humanity Cards Against Humanity New Zealand. So that was kind of the biggest roadblock. And that's where I thought, maybe we throw in the towel. And at that point, we maybe were selling 10 other games on Trade Me, and whatever. And I think we gave up on it for maybe a couple months, and I kept doing the real estate thing, but I just kept having this itch. I was like, nah, come on. Like, we were selling so many games, like we were paying rent. It was going well. So I was like, okay, well, how can we go official? Like, what do we need to do here? The first thing was I was very sick of paying Trade Me fees. And I'd worked out what Shopify was by that point. So we decided, no, we'll get in some games through the official Australian distributor. Like, we'll do it properly, and we'll get the Facebook page back up and running. And by getting access to the official distributors as well, we realized, man, there's not just 10 games, there are thousands of games, because this gives us access to Catan and Codenames, Monopoly, all of that stuff. I remember going on their site and realizing, holy shit, we can buy PlayStations wholesale. That's so cool.
They would have almost probably like directed you away from like being like, maybe we could just like put our profits back into buying PlayStations.
Yeah, literally. And we also looked at the fees we were paying on Trade Me every time we did one of these flash sales. And so I still have a screenshot somewhere, which I will send you, of the first ever Game King site, because
I would love that.
I remember it so clearly. It was like a Friday, and we said, oh, let's do a flash sale of games, this weekend. Let's get some cash. We probably wanted to do something. And we whipped together this Shopify site, and I'm going to say literally 40 minutes. Just
wow.
Choose a theme. The logo was just a piece of clip art with the word Game Kings written under it that was crooked, and like we'd literally screenshotted it off another website so much that the logo was like slightly cut off. There was no About Us page. There was no shipping page. It was literally just raw product listing, and set up on Shopify Payments or Stripe or whatever it was at the time. So quick and easy to set up. And we launched it on the Facebook page, and I think the page maybe had a few thousand followers at that point. And when we launched it on the page, the site converted at 11% that weekend.
Wow, that's really high.
Oh, insane. And we did like thousands of dollars. And there was like a real pivotal kind of moment where I was like, oh wow, like it's actually not about how good the website is or anything. It's about people being in love with the brand. Like
Mm.
people like Game Kings for the fun social media, the fact we're very personal, and they trust us. We
Yeah.
post photos of ourselves. Like it doesn't matter how the pages are set up. And yeah, no, to a degree now, I do really care about how the website is set up and, all of that. But they just prove that you don't need to be something crazy to start. Like it just needed to be a basic site.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I guess for you, one of the things is one of the things I wrote down here from what you're talking when we're looking at it is I've got a group coaching program. And one of the things we were talking about with TikTok was I want my coaching clients to have their business TikTok, but to have a personal one on something they're really interested in, because I have that and my personal one outdoes my business one, or it has been. Because my personal one isn't me going, I'm going to sell to people. Like in my head, I'm not going, I'm just selling to people. So one of the things you did really right, and I'm sure you're aware of it, but that whole thing around, putting memes and just like joking around and being silly on it, it creates a community of people that are interacting with you. So you're actually building a whole lot of trust and interest in you. And the engagement's always going to be bigger then, so that when you do sell, people are ready for it. Like they're almost begging or waiting to be sold to.
Yeah, exactly. And like even the content that we were posting, it wasn't even necessarily like that Cards Against Humanity related. Like,
No.
we're just having fun. And yeah, sure, it's in a similar comedic sort of area, but naturally it was just me and my mates having fun on Facebook. And growing a following. You're so right. People trust us, and you're right. People almost ask for it at that point. They're like, "Oh, who is this? How can we support them?" And I think when we released our first ever Kickstarter project, because we make games now as well. The backing was incredible, because I think there was so many people who probably didn't even care about the game we were making, but just were so invested in the whole Game Kings, I guess, like story and ecosystem. And to be fair, like that is 100% what's put us above, our biggest New Zealand competitor. Like, and they're critically aware and have told us, they're like, oh, we're jealous of, the personality in your marketing and stuff. Because, and it is a thing that a big company, it does get harder to do as a company gets bigger, especially, it's been probably a big challenge for Game Kings for me to get other people to help with marketing. Every time we've got someone else to help with marketing, I feel like such a micromanager, because I'm always like, no, just change. Because to a degree, like I'm kind of like, well, I'm the one who like in the start got us here. I know what works on our social media. I know how to,
I think too, though, like people, it's really interesting because if you get more than one person being the face, like I even think about companies like Duolingo who made their Duolingo Hour the face, and that was genius. Like it's when you've got one face, or you've got a regular person and you've got their feel and way of doing things, people relax into it. And the minute you start adding other people in, I can understand why you'd want to micromanage that, because if it slightly deviates away, and then it just slightly deviates away a bit more and more and more, it stops being. It's so easy to slide into selling territory or salesy territory, instead of sticking with what your original ethos was, which was to have that fun element in there.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I guess when you bring a marketing company on board, you do tell them, what's the goal, and you do say, oh, well, the goal is ROAS. The goal is, sales at the end of the day. We unfortunately we're a little capitalist business. It's
Should be.
we're trying to make sales, but at the same time, just want to have fun. And I think that kind of goes through everything with Game Kings. I'm a very relaxed boss, probably too relaxed at points. But it's like I have never had a proper job, so maybe I'm not the best boss, but I just think about what it's like, well, this is how I want to be treated. This is how I trim staff and other suppliers. And I'm well known for jumping into like meetings with suppliers, or people we're wanting to work with, and being way too casual when I start the call, like just jumping on and just bantering just straight away. And it's like, well, just shut up. We're all just people. Take your stupid, like, I don't care about your suit or the meeting. Like, you're literally just a dude, or you're a person. Like, let's have a good chat. Big sidetrack, but yeah.
No, it's not a sidetrack actually, because I'm like that too. Again, I'm thinking, is that ADHD? Or maybe it's just that I've spotted you because you've got a similar type of approach. But I think for me, if someone is wanting to be super professional and serious to try and elevate themselves with me, it's an instant turn off. And so I've realized that one of the things I've discovered is I don't really see someone because of their wealth or celebrity or whatever as being any different to me. And so I'm quite happy to come in at the same level as them. And if they can accept that and just realize we're two people in a room talking, if they don't, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to be a great fit from a business perspective, because I don't want to feel like I'm having to talk below you all the time looking up. Like, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're just, we've
Just
all got
people, right?
Yeah, we're just people hanging out, we're having fun.
So you started out in your parents' house with a small, like a corner of your room, and then you went to a flat, and obviously we're using some of that space to sell games. What was the next step after that?
Next step, so as a sidetrack to Game Kings, because Game Kings,
Surprisingly.
Game Kings was the side project. I had kind of picked up quite an interest for e-commerce, and I'd seen another e-commerce company for sale. And it was an online costume store. And I don't really talk about this much anymore because I probably should, because it is literally the biggest failure I've ever had so far. And
oh dear.
I was like maybe 20, and I had some inheritance, and I had a family member with a little bit of cash, and I had a bank who was stupid enough to give me some cash. And we went and bought this online costume store. And I've never seen a Marvel film. I've never seen Harry Potter. I've never seen Lord of the Rings. I don't really watch a lot of movies. And buying a costume store was the stupidest thing. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about retail. I knew nothing about margin. But God, did I learn when I ruined it. And yeah, so at that point, we needed to put the costume store somewhere. And so I went looking for cheap office or warehouse space. And we found what was Game King's original home was, we were 10 stories up in this old tower building in Hamilton. It was an old office 10 floors up above Centre Place Mall. And that became, our e-commerce home for a couple years. And I'm not kidding, probably over 100,000 orders have gone in and out of that e-commerce, that lift that goes through the mall. And like, we became so well known in the building because we were getting pallets delivered at the bottom of the lift. Couriers hated us.
I bet they did.
Every order went up and down this lift. It was so annoying. And so I was quite focused on the costume thing for a while, and literally Game Kings was still just this tiny little project to the side that was kind of like crying out for attention. But I was so distracted in trying to make this costume thing work, and just not. And I learned so much because I'll be honest, I ran that thing into the ground. I did not do a good job. Luckily, we ended up actually we sold that company off to a supplier who we owed the supplier a whole bunch of money, and the agreement was kind of, hey, you just take the business right off the debt, and got off that quite nicely. But then I was left. I was quite depressed at the time. I was pretty gutted.
I can imagine it. So you wouldn't have had a lot of like big setbacks until then. Like, you've probably been you got an internship at MediaWorks by just walking in. You'd got lighting design work just by kind of having these opportunities. And so this would probably be one of the first times where it was something you really wanted and really worked hard at, and the Elliot Jessup brain just didn't work in this case.
Yeah, and it was honestly a lack of experience, in hindsight, I should have never got into it. Like, it was just, I know such an amount about retail and trade now that I just, I would have never touched it. It's a category that I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
And the business model was ultimately flawed, and we tried every which way to make it work. But hey, like, we learned a huge amount, which then helped with Game Kings. And I think, I was depressed for a while when that went down. And, we lost a bunch of money, or, what was a huge amount of money at the time. But we still had Game Kings there. And I remember, so it was my godmother, actually. It was my godmother I was living with at the time, not my parents as well. And she was the one who'd put the money in for the costume thing. And I remember her kind of saying, oh, well, I guess that's kind of gone. And I was like, no, I've got this game thing. It's still going. And so she just by happening to be an owner of Costume World, which was the same company we were doing all the game stuff in. She all of a sudden became a 50% shareholder in this miscellaneous games project. And I was like, no, we'll make the money back. Like we'll make it back. And just went to work on Game Kings with all the things I'd learned from the costume business, and went in on that. So, you know, for a couple years, we operated from the 10th story until we were literally bursting at the seams. Like we're taking over offices down the hall, putting up stuff in there. Like it was just so overpacked. It was just, and that went until 2020.
That's amazing.
Like, it was a good couple of years. I think it was probably 2018. We were like, no, we need to get a warehouse at some point, but we couldn't really afford it. And, you know, we were paying very cheap rent in this office. We also loved being in town. That was a lot of fun. But then, yeah, 2020 was a crazy time for us.
Well, that would have been, that was one of the busiest years we've ever had. And I know that other people did very badly. You know, obviously I always feel bad. So I've kind of got over it now, because I realize that it's just part of the thing where some businesses will do really well in a pandemic and some won't. But for you, it would have been a tremendous boom, because there would have been all these people who couldn't spend money going overseas, were locked at home, had to keep themselves entertained, had to keep their kids entertained, and they would have been like, I need something.
Yeah. And so COVID was, at the time, right place, right time. You know, luckily we were so small as well at the time that, you know, we only needed one person to run the whole show, you know, to really do everything. And Ben and I were actually living together at that point as well. So, you know, we could actually still ship our orders because we weren't seeing any other people. It was, you know, him and I were home together, and then we'd just go into the office together, and we'd text the courier once we'd left and be like, no one's there, you know, you're free to come get stuff. And we were supplying I remember we were supplying games to like prisons at the time as well. And just, the demand for games was crazy. Getting stock was such an issue, but we're quite lucky we had a bit in reserve before COVID. And the whole COVID boom, and that made board games, I guess, cool again as one, or just like opened people's eyes again to board games. Cards Against Humanity was definitely the thing which like changed the board game industry. Like before that, board games were not cool.
Because I am, how old are you, Elliot?
27.
27. So you would be are you a millennial or a Gen Z? You cusp, eh?
I'm like the edge of a millennial.
Yeah, because one of the things I find really interesting, so my kids are Gen Z, and I love, you know, board games when I was a kid was Game of Life and Cluedo, which, you know, anyway. And my sister and my brother are really into board games, and they've always, like, you know, they've got me my, you know, Catan and Azul and those ones that they'll play them avidly and often give card games. But I'm quite fascinated about Gen Zs and millennials. I think younger millennials tend to be, that there is this real culture around board games, because they don't want to be necessarily going to someone's house for a dinner party, but they'll quite happily go to a park or to someone else's house, or to play board and card games. It's become a beautiful cultural thing of a way to connect. And I think too, because there's less face-to-face communication, it's slightly less intense than having a discussion face-to-face about something. You can play a game and bond and hang out without having to talk to each other too much.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Like, you know, our kind of company why is about, you know, connecting people. And, you know, it's through the medium of game. And if we go back right to the very start, Cards Against Humanity was, you know, me looking for something to do with my friends, you know, it's something to bond me and my friends. And that's kind of stuck with us the whole time. It's just like, you know, we're trying to give a good time and help people connect through games. It's really what it is, because there's nothing better than, you know, if you're sitting at a table with 6 people, 4 of them are probably on their phones if you're not doing something.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, if you can pull out a game, everyone gets off their phones and just laughs and connects and gets to know each other through a game. Like, they're the perfect medium. And that's kind of why we've never gone into like video games and computer games. Like, you know, it would make sense that, oh, you're Game Kings, you should sell this stuff. And, you know, we get search traffic on the website for it. And maybe it would be a smart move to do that at some point. But, you know, for now, it's just, let's focus on like being the best we can for board games. And also not just going into that like very niche of hardcore, like, super hobby gamer, but it is the millennial, my age, who is, not what you'd call like a typical board game nerd, but, is smart enough to play Catan or Azul or something like that and take it around to a friend's house and just have a good time. That's who our market is. Like, I think we've tried a bunch of things, and at the start, our market was like party games, drinking games. You just want to, you want to get messed up. That's what it is. We've gone right to the other spectrum at other times as well, and gone, okay, well, let's go really hardcore on like Dungeons and Dragons minis and like, that really hobby hardcore stuff. And we've settled somewhere beautifully in between, where it's like, yeah, sure, we do sell a bit of that hardcore hobby stuff, but that's not our direct market. Like, those people have their hobby game stores for that. That's cool. And like, I think people always assume we have beef with like local, more hobby stores. It's like, no, absolutely not. Like, they serve their purpose for that. We're also not just for that, oh, I just want to get drunk and play a really raunchy game. Yeah, we've definitely got that stuff, and that's where we started. And we've just found this like kind of beautiful medium now, where it's like, no, it's about a good time with people at a table, no matter what they're playing, right?
So one of the other things I find quite interesting, because I want to play to win. Like, I'm definitely like, well, I would deny this. My husband says I'm the most competitive person he's ever known. I would like to think I am quite social and not that competitive. But one of the things I also found quite interesting with my girls in particular is they quite like playing collaborative games. And I had to really get my head around this idea that a collaborative game actually had purpose. Like, I was like, why the hell would you play a game where nobody wins? What is the point? But I have, like, even with Azul, like, we play a more collaborative style with it. By the way, Azul is, if anyone's listening, Azul has got the most beautiful tiles. Like, I'm very tactile and I like color, and this is why I like that game, because it's so pretty. But they'll play a more collaborative style, and it's interesting to me that a lot of the games do have options to play that can be hard out competitive, but can also be just about really enjoying the moment of hanging out together, which I really like.
Yeah, and like, it's not, you're right, it's not just about winning. It's, just doing something together. It's fun.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's good. What games are you currently? Do you play a lot of the games?
Next question.
You don't have time at the moment. You're running a company and you're also doing lighting design.
Yeah, I definitely do try and play games where I can. I think that's probably one misconception, which like I try not to be crazy public about, is people assume that I started Game Kings because of a crazy love for board games. And it wasn't particularly. It was a love for like Cards Against Humanity and like party games and stuff like that. And so I think for a few years I struggled with thinking that like, oh, board game purists won't like Game Kings because I got it. But I think it's just been important throughout the years that we always hire people who know lots about board games, and we rely on our suppliers who know a lot about board games, and we teach ourselves a lot. And, to be fair, I played a lot of games now, and I do understand the category a lot better than when I first started. But I think that's also slightly the difference between Game Kings and other like retailers out there, is like they run the business for an absolute passion of the product, right?
It's a weakness, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying about any serious, but just generally, I always have a red flag if a client comes to me and we're working with their business. Often the reason their business is struggling is because it's a passion business, and you actually can't. It's very difficult to run a profitable, successful, growing, thriving business if it is your complete and utter passion, because the passion gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly. And like, to be fair, if you're happy just having, a little game store, and you just want to play some games and be really passionate, or whatever the product is yourself, like, that's really cool. But then you're right, it distracts you from what you're actually trying to do.
Yeah. And you make worse choices because you're led by your current passion of your favorite game or what you're doing, as opposed to being able to take a step back and look commercially at it and go, this particular game sold really well. I personally wouldn't play it, but I know that this game is similar to that, so it's likely to also sell well.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So there we go. It's totally okay that you don't play card games all the time. I won't put that in. I won't, when I write it down, we won't be adding that in. We'll just, we'll keep it in the podcast, but it won't So tell me a little bit about, like, in terms of marketing, like, I know you mentioned, you do paid advertising?
We do heaps of paid.
A lot of paid. And have you found that that has become a lot more expensive over the last few years with the iOS 14 and things like that with Facebook?
Yep, to a degree, it definitely has. I think we've never been crazy granular about trusting like Facebook attribution and attribution.
No, you shouldn't. Very good idea.
Anyway, like end of the day, like my biggest like calculator is literally just looking at, okay, we've been running ads for this game for the last 7 days. We've spent this. What have we sold?
Yeah, that's the best way to look at it, I think. And because I do think also it's always a microcosm of, and I tell the people all this time, you've got to look at what your organic marketing was doing plus your email marketing, and then if you're doing paid ads, and put it all together, because if you send an email during that period, your return of investment is going to be bigger, but you might not see it on their Facebook ad, or they might claim it, but the attribution's really messed up. So I agree with you. You have to be looking at, this is the activity we've been doing, this is what we've been promoting, and how we can physically see that there's an impact. So you do that, and then you've got obviously Google AdWords as well, and you're using, I think I have seen you on TikTok.
We're really enjoying TikTok, and I think luckily, like, I don't mind being in front of a camera, and we've got a few other people around Game Kings who also don't mind. We've been doing a bit of paid on TikTok as well. I found it a really like quite affordable channel. The traffic has been attribution. It's a little bit hard to quantify.
It is hard.
Traffic's working. But also at the end of the day, when the days we've had TikTok ads running, we've had good days of sales. And it's,
at the end of the day, it's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And do you do things like put those like TikToks on YouTube Shorts? Are you using other avenues, or is it just mainly Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We dabbled in YouTube and a bit of longer form content stuff last year. I think we went down this path for a while of looking to go to like the really hardcore board game niche sort of thing. We literally had a guy working for us making huge blogs and big long videos and stuff. And there is definitely a space in the world for that content. And he was doing a really great job of it, but I just don't think that's what was actually, going to drive good sales unless you're at, crazy scale to do that.
So I'm going to give you something that you should add that's going to cost you $25 US a month, and that's it, and no effort. So there's an app called repurpose.io. I'll send you a link to it after this. But basically, you can do a thing where as soon as you do a TikTok, it automatically publishes it without the TikTok watermark on your YouTube channel. And if you have automatic like things in the bottom of it with links back to your website, like as an automatic answer underneath, it drives heaps more traffic to your website, and it's automatic, so you don't have to do anything else.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, send that over.
I'll send you a link. It's amazing. I use it, and it goes out to Twitter as well, and then I save it to Google Drive, and then use that as my reel.
So it saves into Google Drive for you. Great.
Automatically. Yes. It's magic. It also does Pinterest and a whole lot of different other ones. Like, it's just so good. And I get my coaching clients to use it, but it's literally saved me hours, because because I teach people how to do their own marketing. I then don't get a lot of other people to do my marketing for me, even though that would make a lot of sense, because I have to kind of prove that if I can do it and run a business, then you can do it. So I'm always looking for tools that can cut down that admin time, and it's an awesome tool. So I'll send it to you, because I think if you've got short form content that's going well, you may as well put it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And because you do use LinkedIn, and that's how I connected with you a while ago, and I've followed you for a while, and I know that you share mainly on there more of the business style of things. You don't tend to share on their products, do you?
Yeah, like LinkedIn, I think how you're saying before, you encourage some clients to have like a personal TikTok and the business TikTok. For a few years, LinkedIn was like, my personal thing. And I'm not super active on there anymore, kind of, because I think at the beginning, to be honest, I was probably seeking some validation and trying to like prove myself a little bit as an entrepreneur. And I'm quite comfortable where we are now. It's like, we've built something. We're not desperately trying to prove ourselves anymore. And I'm also really, really busy. And I do, yeah. I feel like back in the day, I used to have a bit more free time for trying to come up with good LinkedIn posts. And yeah, this last year or two is just, yeah. Ever since the start of COVID, the Game Kings has just been kind of out of hand. And to be fair, like we definitely ran into the trap of growing a bit too fast, too quick, and having to, I think, I guess, realign what we were doing. Like for us, COVID was a blessing at the time because, you know, just crazy growth. But then we actually kind of had like a bit of long tail, I guess, hurt from COVID where the supply chain started screwing out. But also,
not good.
You know, when people could then actually leave their houses and go back out and do stuff, you know, unfortunately, you know, our growth slowed down, as did I think a lot of businesses. And we had naively just assumed during COVID, oh, well, if we're growing like this, why would we stop? And
yeah, it's a big trap. But, you know, I've worked with quite a few businesses who we really had to talk to them and go, you cannot look at your 2020, 21 figures and look at that and compare for 2022 or, you know, or 23 or even 24. You need to go back to 2018, 19 and pull from that and use that as your figures to compare. And you'll see more growth that you'll go, actually, I have grown. But it is like, I think it's a trap that so many people did, particularly retailers, because suddenly, especially ones that kind of like were already teetering on growth anyway, to see that big growth suddenly come in and that just kept on going, it did feel like it was just going to keep on going.
Yeah. And so that was a big lesson for us, I guess, like this year, late last year, was seeing that growth slow down, and one, taking it very personally and going, well, what are we doing wrong? Like, you know,
nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And, you know, having to make some adjustments, like transparently at the beginning of this year was really hard. We were really overstaffed. We'd continue, you know, we'd taken on a whole nother warehouse. We'd taken on a huge amount of debt. And for the first time in Game Kings history, we actually had to just do some cutbacks, you know, and it was really
the worst.
Horrendous. Like,
we had to do it. I'm actually going to send you a copy. Do you read books? I know ADHD. Okay. Sometimes I'll send you a copy of my book. But I talk in there about how we had to do the same thing about 5 or 6 years ago. And I know those people have moved on. This is the first year, because it happened about a month ago, 5 or 6 years ago. This is the first year that I didn't have panic attacks during that month, 5 years later. Because I was so grievously hurt by what I had to do to these people that had entrusted me to be the person that employed them. I don't think I didn't realize that that's how it would feel. But it is actually a horrible thing to go through, because it's not just you're facing your own failure and fear of, I don't want to make my business fail, but you're also going, I failed these people by not providing them a secure place to be employed. I know it's hard for the person to lose a job. I've been somewhere been made redundant, but I think it surprised me how hard it is to be the person doing it.
Yeah. And I think though I just remember being so blown away though by, like, unfortunately the people we did have to make redundant, just how so supportive and kind even that they were to Game. And I think, you know, there's a testament to the company that we've grown and the team that we have, that, you know, we've tried to make it fun and we've tried to do the best. And, you know, we never, of course, we never hired you with the intention of you
never, right?
And at the time, it was really a case of, well, if we don't make these changes, you know, this could end us. You know, we need to, you know, make these cuts now. It was really hard, and I think it will be for a while. And I think, you know, the recovery from that, from the business point of view, is taking a while as well.
It is. It's a big. It's big, and I think, you know, that you can have a successful business, but still be one that has these periods of intense struggle and discomfort.
Look, I don't think out of all the books I've read on business and all the stories of everything, you never hear of a story of a business not having some kind of like struggle. And I'm really glad that, you know, we're pretty well past that now and we're back onto the up, which is awesome. And it feels really, and it feels like it was just another challenge, you know, like in a way. I remember my flatmate at the time earlier this year. I remember one night just sitting on the couch and almost crying with him, just going, holy shit, man, like this is so hard. This is so hard. And he said something so good. He goes, you know, Elliot, you've spent years dealing with a business that's just growing like this, and you've learned so much from this. And now it's just a different challenge. It's a different level in the game. You just need to learn how to deal with the business that's struggling for a bit. It's a different set of challenges.
That's such a good way to see it.
Yeah. And you know, I did just kind of reframe it as like, it's a different challenge. And in bad timing this year, I had to go overseas for a few months doing lighting, which was something I'd committed to a long time before, you know, the business was struggling a bit. And when I came back, you know, I was overseas I had the worst anxiety in my life while I was overseas. I should have been having the best time of my life because, you know, I'm traveling around Europe, being creative, doing one of the things I love. But the whole time I just got this thing in the back of my head going, oh, fuck, I just need to get home and work on game. I just need to get home. And so I just came home like as soon as I could. And when I got home, I just framed it as a challenge. It's just like, okay, cool. Wow, this is what's going wrong. Like, here are the things I can do to fix it. And, you know, I'd been putting pretty crazy work in Europe doing this lighting. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to pull the same work ethic into Game Kings as I get home and just get shit back on track. And that's when we started doing TikTok.
I love that. And I think I've got I might send a link to it. I did a podcast really early on when I started doing Map It Marketing with a woman called Tash from a company called juggled. She sells these cool little pins. And she did TikTok. And then around this time of the year, she started doing $10,000 a day just on TikTok sales.
Wow.
And I'll send you the thing because her main revenue, she's in Australia, her main revenue now is just from TikTok.
Insane, yeah.
Which is exciting. So I love that you've done that. So for you, what do you feel is next up for Game Kings? Like, what do you feel what are you excited about with where you guys are going now?
I think for us, it's actually getting more into, like, we've got a second part of Game Kings Studios, which is, you know, where we're actually creating games ourselves and publishing and licensing in other people's games. And, you know, I think when we first got into Game Kings, it was an interest in e-commerce and a bit of games. And I think we've done a really incredible job of building an awesome e-commerce retailer. And I think we know that we can't particularly take the e-commerce retail of everyone else's products out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
But we can take the games that we're making out of New Zealand, you know, that we're not there's no point. We've thought about going into Australia so many times, but there's no point of us trying to launch Game Kings in Australia from New Zealand when there's so many competitors over there and the shipping's so expensive. Like, it's just not worth it. But the future of Game Kings is super exciting. Like, we have so many games of our own in the pipeline, which is, you know, they don't only just go through Game Kings, but then they go through all the other retailers as well. And, you know, we've got our games through Whitcoulls and Paper Plus and Farmers.
It is exciting.
You know, that's where the future is for us. And it's not about abandoning the retail in any way. You know, we've built this awesome retail company here, and Game King Studios and Game Kings, they work kind of symbiotically really nicely together, where, you know, we can see what's working on Game Kings and we can create more games. And then we've got this huge database of customers to, you know, feed stuff through. And so that's kind of the future for us, is just continuing to be like the best online retailer that we can, along with growing Game King Studios.
What I really like about that too, though, for you as someone with ADHD who needs constant challenges, is that developing a game, like each one of them, even though there'd be a process, it would be similar. Each one of those is a new challenge. So it's a really great way for you to stay stimulated in the business.
Yeah, true.
You know, like, it's a really, because I have little products that I've started developing for us, and some of them have to go on hold because my husband's an annoying CFO who makes us have profit goals before we reach them. It's really irritating. But like, I know those are the things that keep me going. Like, I need to have those to kind of be the stimulation for all the dry stuff I've got to do as a business owner. Like, it's a good balance. This has been a really awesome chat. I've really enjoyed, and I just want to say too, thank you so much for your openness and honesty. I think it's been a really amazing story, and it's been one that I know a lot of small business owners will take a lot of hope from, because you've taken risks. Some of those haven't always worked, but you've come through, and how you've pushed through that is actually completely inspiring. If people want to know how to get your games, the ones that you've designed and also the ones that you sell that you've designed and haven't designed, where do they go?
Yeah, just gamekings.co.nz. Hopefully you can find us. Yeah, ads should be working, but no, just jump on there. We don't really do a lot of physical retail. We've tried around with it, but no, we're based in Kirikiriroa. Welcome to drop in any time. That's another thing which is really cool is we've got this little click and collect store at the front of Game Kings, but when we built the office, we did all this construction and we put a window in the store. So you could come into the store, but you can actually see through to the warehouse out the back. Because I wanted people to be able to kind of see, like, there's actually thousands of games back there. And when we're not having a particularly busy day, if someone comes in to look in the store's probably got 100 games to look at. Out the back, there's thousands. We'll just let a customer go walk through the warehouse.
That's awesome. That would be very dangerous on my credit card. I'm just saying.
Come in anytime. But the 99% of the time, the customer says the same thing. You say, "Oh, do you want to look at the full range?" And you let them walk through the office, and you open those two big doors that go out to the warehouse. And every time they just go, "Holy shit!" And
I was going to say I had a different swear, but I was imagining a holy F moment. That's probably what I would say. Yeah, so I agree. Like you would not realize, like it would be an exciting moment.
Yeah, because we've got floor to ceiling warehouse racking just full of thousands of games. And it's really cool when we had some customers a few weeks ago from Christchurch who were visiting the North Island, traveling through Hamilton, and they made a particular, moment to stop in Hamilton to come to Game Kings. And it was cool because, I looked at one of their customer accounts and I think he's done like 30 orders or something in the last couple of years. And so it's really cool to be able to say, well, this warehouse here, this is where every single one of your orders has come from, like these are the people who have packed your box,
I love
and
that.
to be fair, a few days a week, I'm generally out there packing boxes as well. I and so many of my friends and family have packed boxes for Game Kings. I kind of say, if you haven't packed a box for Game Kings, you're probably not a real friend.
I love that. I'm going to check your TikTok because I'm hoping you've got some box. Yes, you do. You've got some packing orders ones, which is always really important. I'll tell you one thing that Tash said that I really liked is if someone says that they came from TikTok on their order, she then makes a video of them particularly packing that order, which is a bit magic, and puts it on TikTok. That was one of the changing things that she did that worked really well.
Yeah.
Little hack. This has been a complete pleasure. Thank you so much, Elliot, for being part of this. It was just so good to talk to you. And I've written down about 7 things I want to do from this that has reminded me that I want to do, which is always, it's like, I want to get that. And actually, I will just say, though, that your failed costume story reminded me that I desperately need to buy myself a Cat in the Hat costume for my TikTok. So, hey.
Costumeworld.co.nz. We're still going. And it's still the same website that we built.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. And it was lovely. Thank you so much for being part of the show. And I'm looking forward to hearing this when it comes out too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
One of the things I love most about podcasting is how much I learn about myself. And I made a bunch of notes when I was talking to Elliot of things that I realized that I wanted to do. One of the things that happened was I recorded the podcast that was last week's podcast, all about my story around putting myself first, because I really thought about how that impacted me. I also bought a Cat in the Hat costume afterwards because he was talking about his other business. But what I really loved about talking to Elliot was thinking about how often we don't need to have a massive game plan, which I've talked about before, but that what we do need to make sure is that we're really focusing on using our best skills and having that balance of having what we do best and then having other people around us to help us do those things. The other thing I really liked about talking with Elliot was talking about that difficulty he's experienced, and I know is so common, around other people coming and doing the marketing and it not getting right. It's one of my passions, of course, because I really want small business owners to really get their messaging right from the start before they think about getting someone else doing it. And if you are the person that's the face of your business, I'd love you to come and be part of my coaching program, or just subscribe to my Substack, which it's called Content Master Web, and it's on Substack, or Hello Human by Rachel Klaver on Substack. And you can come and learn from there as well, for free or for a low cost. But when we come back and have a look at Elliot, I guess what I'd really like to check with you is that, are you ready to push it forward in 2023? Are you ready to commit to big, scary shit, as he says in the podcast, and grow further than you are now? If you aren't wanting to do that, if you're wanting to stay as you are, that's also totally okay. But have a think. Is it time for you to see growth next year and step out to make that happen? What is the year going to be for you? Make a decision and step forward in whatever that is with confidence and play the game. It's a fun one. Talk to you next week. If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.